Okay.
There's more room in the corner here if you guys feel packed over there.
You good?
There's a cushion over here that's empty.
Yeah.
I want to welcome everyone to the Three Jewels, this incredible place run by volunteers, free usually or by donation usually. It's been around for over 20 years in various places in Manhattan, and it's been the place where my life shifted in a way that I didn't think was possible. I saw things, thanks to the Three Jewels in life, that myths and stories are told about, but it wasn't magical, it was real. Yeah? And it shifted the way I had to engage with this world. So I hope that as you spend time here, or at least tonight, you get a sense of the real power that's available through the things we'll get to share. And it's all thanks to this incredible place called the Three Jewels. So welcome, everyone. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're covering tonight, just so you can all get really scared. If you need to run away, you run away tonight. And then next week, we can really start teaching. Yeah. My name is Hector Marcel. I was born in Argentina. I grew up in Australia. And in my 20s, I started traveling the world in the hope for a real education, not the stuff they sold me at university. I knew I was going to get there eventually, but I had an old wise man told me, if you want to get educated, you should just go travel the world and look at what humans become in all sorts of settings. And that landed me in New York, and it was eye-opening, you know, to see what humans did in this part of the planet. And by some incredible stroke of good fortune, I met some problems in my life that were so strong, I needed an alternative to fix them. And so I was vulnerable, and I was hurt, and I was broke, and I was broken. And then this weird Tibetan monk, Buddhist monk, appeared in my life, and I didn't like it. Mm-hmm. So much so that I had to keep listening to him. You know, it was this weird inertia that I had towards everything else I knew wasn't working. But then this man who I didn't have good vibes with initially was saying stuff that was so powerful, so true, that it bothered me at some core. And it began the awakening process of things that are available to us all the time, things around us all the time that we have blinders to, because we are in a culture, in a way of being, in a way of experiencing our own life that is familiar to us, and it'd be too much to look at reality raw and in the way that one day, hopefully, you get to see or forced to see, because when you do, then life begins. Yeah, and it's not easy; it just begins. Yeah. So I'm going to cover what these courses are, the teachings, and then we'll actually start. I'm teaching a summary of a program called the Asian Classics Institute 6 or 7 year curriculum that is the condensed version of the Tibetan Buddhist monastic system studied by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, exactly that lineage. These are the things he had to study, memorize, debate, and prove in order to get his degree before he graduated as a geshe. And that takes something like 20 plus years to study. And I was incredibly fortunate to meet that teacher that I met in New York 20 something years ago. He was the first American to actually graduate through that 20-plus-year degree in Tibetan language. And he condensed all the core teachings of the 5 great books of Buddhism that you study in a Tibetan monastery, ideas around philosophy, ideas around compassion, why compassion, what is the ultimate nature of existence, what's phenomenology about, how does karma work, is there past lives, there's not, and can you prove it, etc., etc., etc. So over 20-something years, he condensed that into this 6-year program called the Asian Classics Institute, ACI courses. And I've been teaching that here for over 6 years, every Thursday night. There's another lady teaching it on Tuesday nights, and it's heady, but it's applicable. It's really applicable. And if you want an alternative to looking at your reality, this is the Eastern alternative. And if you can get past the language, and if you can get past the apparent dogma, you will be electrified to see the world in a different way. And that's not dependent on the words I use, although that's part of it. It's a lot dependent on your engagement. And I hope you find it in you to connect and get some meaning here. So tonight's course is special because it is the second of 3 review classes. This class will save you about 1.6 years or 2 years of that program, because we're reviewing the idea of wisdom, the idea of what's wisdom in Tibetan Buddhist philosophy and how does that apply to my life. And we're studying a root text called the Diamond Sutra, which I'll explain in a second. We're covering the core idea in Buddhism of taking vowed morality. How does morality relate to reality? And how can I become a being where my morality, the way I engage with the world, is a second nature? And can I do that in a way that will force my reality to shift for me? So we're going to study this thing called the Bodhisattva vows, and how does that work to make a promise? Can a promise really shift us? Yeah, we look at the philosophy and we look at the core of that. This is an interesting, the next course we're summarizing over the next few weeks, a few months, is this course called Death and the Realms. It comes from this book called the Abhidhamma Kosha, and it looks at the cosmology as seen from the perspective of 2,500 years ago, and how that mirrors what we engage with in our universe. So we have a picture of the universe in our minds right now, and according to Buddhist philosophy, you're part of that idea of the universe. There's no universe without you as the observer thinking of it in a specific way. This course will look at what were people projecting onto their universe 2,500 years ago? What did that look like? And how the hell can I use it to transform the universe I'm experiencing? That's a powerful course. It will also talk about death and dying, and the thing that we will all have to face. If there's anything that you're going to have to face on this planet, like it or not, in the West we don't want to talk about it, it's taxes. Coming up next week, no, right, or the week after, and death and taxes, yeah. So we won't be talking about taxes, we'll just be talking about death. We'll return to the idea of ethics and how ethics works to create a state of awakening and enlightening. We'll talk about the ethical code from a set of teachings from the Buddha called the Vinaya. And we'll get a glimpse of how ethics, being good, can transform the way your world is, and making a promise to be good can even make that go faster. Yeah, and I know that in the West I was sort of embarrassed about learning that. I'm like, I want to be bad, I don't want to be good. Yeah, but you can be bad, and that makes it good. Yeah, eventually. And then finally, we'll talk about the idea of compassion, like real compassion. We just got back from 10 days away in Nicaragua. We did a retreat on compassion, on what would it feel like if we didn't have fear for loving. Yeah, really, how vulnerable would you allow yourself to become to actually feel in love all the time with everyone? And is that possible? Yeah. So we did a little experiment. We went away in an ideal environment in Nicaragua, where it went to an extinct volcano that is, it's got a lake in its crater now. There's no one else around, just us, a couple of animals, a few spiders that people screamed at. Yeah. Couldn't love those ones. No, I mean, you could with screeching. And and we experimented. Yeah, like, do I have the capacity to be in love unconditionally with how much? Just this bag of skin, or that bag of skin as well, or the next one? And how far can you stretch? And over the days of a silent meditation retreat, we had 4 sessions a day in silence. Can we just let ourselves go there? And it was an incredible experience. And as soon as that finished and we went to the airport, we hated everyone again. They were annoying, no. But now we knew what it felt like. Yeah, and imagine if you could be walking on this planet and not feel fear that you'll be hurt or taken advantage of, or whatever the fear is, yeah, and just let yourself truly love. How would your world be? And then, can other people do that? And if more people did that, how would this world be? And to get a glimpse of that is by itself extraordinary. To have the idea that that's possible is in itself extraordinary. So we'll get to finish off this course, ACI 17, Asian Classics Institute 17, by reviewing the beginning of this incredible book called the Bodhisattva Charavatara, the guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life. A Bodhisattva is a bloody do-gooder, yeah? Someone who's just trying to get that kind of feeling all the time, yeah, for the sake of everyone being happy. We'll end up with that. So that's the core of what we'll get to discuss. And it's condensed, because like I said, this would have taken us 1.5 to 2 years to complete these courses. And we're going to do it in 10 sessions. So we're only going to get the cream of the cream ideas. But you know you can go further in depth if you choose to, by coming to the Tuesday night classes or coming to some workshops or studying further. And study is just one part of our journey to wake up. Yeah, wake up not because someone said to wake up because life hurts. Yeah, and even if you're riding a good wave right now, you know it hurts. Sometimes it'll come and get you sooner than later, or it's already gotten you, and now we've got a few crusty walls of protection, and I'll continue in my life this way, and I'll pretend that didn't happen, and then you may fall in love again and be trusting, and then your heart breaks again, so you get another crusty wall over there, and then you'll focus on your work, and your career will be very important, and then you get hurt there until you build a little crusty wall over there, and this creates an alternative, yeah, to that way of being. And I hope you get to see that tonight. I hope you get a glimpse of it. I'm going to warn you that we do a couple of Tibetan things to keep the lineage where we learned this from alive. Yeah. So I'm not allowed to add any personal information to these courses. These are passed down from teacher to student with a recorded lineage all the way back to the Buddha. And I can give you anecdotes, I can give you my engagement with these ideas, but the ideas themselves, I can't add or do anything like that. So I'll put that as a proviso. I'll teach you what I was taught, what was taught to my teacher, and my teacher's teacher, and my teacher's teacher, and I'll give you context for it if you're interested from my perspective. And then that's just one part. Practicing that is another thing altogether. Yeah, so putting ideas into practice actually becomes your life, becomes the way you engage life. And in there is those precious moments where you know you're onto something, and it might take you a while, but you know you're onto something. And that something is infinitely more powerful than building crusty walls. So one of the things that we get to do is try and follow the formula from this teacher-student instruction on how to really create the courses for these ideas to take root, to mean something in us. And to do that, in the Tibetan system, we do this thing where we offer the mandala. A mandala is your depiction of an ideal universe. And it has this mudra, this hand gesture that looks weird. And if you're interested, I'll teach you. You get your hands like that, and you cross your little pinkies. Then the next fingers become like joining, and the other two, sorry, your thumbs grab your pinkies. The next two fingers make a little mountain, and the other two just grab each other. And if it looks and feels weird, you don't have to do it. You can just go like that and imagine in your hands, you're projecting a perfect universe. And I don't mean physically perfect. I mean every creature crawling on the universe that you think of is happy all of a sudden, completely happy, unshakably happy. So you make that, and then you imagine it with these words, and then you give it away, you offer it to that part of you that learns. The teacher, you invite the teacher to say, here, have it, in exchange for some teachings. So it's a psychological play. So usually we have an umse. Some of you might have met Geshe Tashi Dorje, the monk that was here when some of you walked in. An umse is a chanting master. He was the umse for His Holiness the Dalai Lama for 7 years. And he now lives in New York. We're very fortunate to have him with us. So would you like to umse? Here we go.
Sashi
Goki Jishin Metotram Vira Linchi Ninde Yampati Sangye Shindu Mite Wargi Roku Namda Shimla Shiparsho Idam Guru Ratnamandalatam Niryatayami Chiran Sohi Choknampa Jamchu Bardu Dakni Gyatsushi Dagi Shinyen Gipe Sonam Ki Drola Kanchir Sangye Druparsho Shidam Sohi Choknam La Jamchu Bardu Dakni Gyatsuchi Dagi Shinyen Gipe Sonam Ki Drola Kanchir Sangye Druparsho Shiram Soki Choknam La Jamchu Bardu Dakni Gyatsuchi Dagi Shinyen Gipe Sonam Ki Drola Kanchir Sangye Druparsho. So I'm going to invite you to just take a comfortably seated position. We'll do a tiny meditation and just check in with yourself. Check your motivation for being here, what you hope to get out of here, what made you come over, and see if you can just let that grow and let that aspect of yourself be available to learn or connect with the ideas we'll present here tonight. So make sure your posture is nice and comfortable, your back is straight, your shoulders a little open, so your chest is open. Scan your body to release any tension around the base. Basically, we're saying bye-bye to the physical posture and going to gradually withdraw after we've scanned and released any tension, especially around the face. withdraw until our attention, our mind, just pays attention to the breath entering and exiting the nostril. Nothing else to do, everything else can wait. Just follow the breath as if it's a brand new thing. You've never seen it before, felt it before. Can you connect with the hope or the idea that brought you here, the motivation? And can you help that become true by the state in which you'll be present for the next couple of hours? If you've got any nagging thoughts or thinking of the future or the past, just invite those thoughts to wait for us outside, beyond the mirror in the cafe. Imagine them floating out there like balloons, just waiting for us when we return, if you really want to have them. If not, you just allow yourself the couple of hours to be renewed here in this room, sharing ideas that could fundamentally shift the way we engage with life. When you're ready, slowly come back to the room.
Which you did strong.
I know, they're cool, right?
Amazing.
This is Tibetan artist.
That's what I thought.
Thought he'd just level up the tantra, the tanka painting method. So like I said, today we're going to just introduce the idea of the Diamond Sutra. Who's heard of the Diamond Sutra? Yeah. Who's heard of the Diamond Sutra? Yeah. It's the same thing. Okay, some translators early on got lazy about the kata part, didn't make sense. Seriously, and it became the Diamond Sutra for the longest time. Yeah, and we'll get to talk a little bit about that. There's only, besides the sutra, there's only 2 Indian commentaries left, in hundreds of them before, and we're going to study from those 2, and you don't need to know those texts unless you're doing course 6. And there's 3 Tibetan commentaries, which will get all the information that I'll get to share with you about. But I think a couple of things you should know about the Diamond Sutra, is that this is in the British Library. It is the oldest complete printed book in the world, printed around 860 BC, AD, sorry, that's my mistake. 300 years before the Buddha. He said these words. That's not true. I'm going to change it now. Apologies. Now, does that look more accurate? Yeah. AC. That's me thinking about the air conditioning unit. And now we're going to go AD. Is that right? Ta-da! Okay, so who's heard of the Don Juan caves in China? Who heard of those? It's like the Dead Sea Scrolls. They found this series of caves. I can't remember how many, but many caves that were sealed up until the 1920s, I want to say. Maybe later. And there was this one lonely monk taking care of this cave complex. It was on the old Silk Road, complete desert, yeah? And in there they found this, the oldest printed book in the world, complete printed book in the world, this, the oldest copy of the Diamond Sutra. As well as finding commentaries and texts, not just from Buddhism, but from any other tradition that went through the Silk Road. That whole story is just another story as well. What's interesting about the Diamond Sutra and this copy is that it's the first public domain document. It actually says for universal use, in the for absolutely anybody in the universe to use. So it's the oldest printed book, complete printed book on the planet. It's in the British Library, this copy, and it is really for everybody. No one's got copyright on it, and it's intended for everybody to use. It became a fundamental piece of work that shaped the ideas of Asia, Central Asia and Southern Asia as well. The ideas in the Diamond Sutra, for example, every single home in Mongolia has it as a blessing, like it is auspicious to have it. And then you pay monks or you make offerings to monks and nuns to come and read and recite the sutra in your home. So it shaped Eastern thought, you know, for thousands of years, for 1,000+ years. And the sutra is like most sutra. Sutra is a name given to the discourse of the Buddha. Yeah, and usually sutras are this kind of question and answer. You'd have some special person in the audience saying, "Hold on, what about this?" Yeah, and then the Buddha would answer, and therein comes a discussion about a certain aspect of reality, of how to overcome suffering, or how to gain compassion, or whatever the topic is. And so sutras can be divided into baskets, blah, blah, blah. We get one day to discuss all that. This particular sutra is a discussion on the ultimate way things exist. It's on the fundamental concept of emptiness. You know? And so Subhuti gets to ask the question of the Buddha, you know, and says, hey, if I want to reach a really high level of being, remember I said the word bodhisattva before? Yeah, someone that has this wish to reach enlightenment for the sake of helping every living being, the capacity to love absolutely everybody unconditionally. If I want to be that being and reach a higher level, become an enlightened and awakened being, if I want to do that, what's going on?
I'm looking for a pen.
She's looking for a pen. What should I do? You know, how should I think, or something like that? And we'll cover it in a second. So this particular text is asking, if I want my life to be incredible, beyond incredible, like completely blissed out, what should I do? What is it that I should do? You, enlightened being who can see everything. Yeah, can you teach me? The interesting about how sutras begin and end is this exchange between teacher and student. For those of you who have been studying this before, you should know that in every sutra, someone asks a question or poses a problem, and the teacher answers. And it's to allude to the fact that you cannot get teachings without asking. Yeah, you can't just be walking around and going, hey, somebody surprised me. Yeah, if you need some knowledge, if you need to connect to some meaning for you, you should seek it. You should ask. Ask and thou shalt receive. Yeah. And so for the people practicing Buddhist thought, you must find a teacher that can teach you. And they won't teach you if you don't ask. And sometimes you have to ask repeatedly. And so you have this interplay here, not just in this sutra and others. So for those of you who have done the courses already, Subhuti in one of the commentaries is said to be Manjushri, asking the Buddha, like Manjushri, which is the Buddha of wisdom, the Buddha of understanding the ultimate, yeah, disguised as Subhuti, this monk, this elder monk, asking the Buddha, another enlightened being, hey dude, how do we all get perfect, right? So it's the undertone here, for those of you who have been studying, is that there's an enlightened being having a dialogue with an enlightened being, right? Demonstrating for us how to get woke, how to wake up, yeah? So it's the words of an enlightened being with the words of having a chit chat for us to witness so we could reach them, yeah? And I found that really interesting, that we just get to witness a dialogue between two people who are woke. Yeah, woke up. So here's the Tibetan text first. I won't put it up all the time, but I'd like you to see it. But the source, and so actually, Steve, yeah, in my bag is the actual sutra. Can you get it? And just feel free to open it up and pass it around so people can. And this is the English translation. This is what we taught Asian Classics Institute Course 6 from. And sometime after it's established that the Buddha went and had his breakfast and sat down, and there's metaphor. The question is asked from Subhuti, O Conqueror, what of those who have entered well into the way of the Bodhisattva? Meaning, what about those people who have said goodbye to getting happy the old way? Yeah, what about those people that have gone, okay, I know it doesn't matter how many girlfriends or boyfriends I'm going to get, I'm still going to end up a little unhappy. It doesn't matter how many times I go to the gym, or how many times I get implants, I'm still going to get old saggy skin and my legs are going to drop off. It doesn't matter how much this or that I do, the condition of this world is that it's breaking. And I've gone beyond that. I want to help figure out how to be free from that really. And is it possible? Yeah. For those beings that aspire to reach a place of awakening, truly awakened, for the sake of everyone else who's fumbling around trying to get the boyfriend, girlfriend, the job, etc. What should we be doing? Yeah, for the sake of those who want to do that, how should we live? How should we practice? How should we keep thinking so we can get there quicker? Yeah. And so this is the beginning of the discourse. Is someone saying, okay, sick and tired of the old way of living. I realized I want to get really happy, unshakably happy, and that I'm not the only bastard on the planet whose sort of unhappiness is coming at all the time. My mom is the same, my sister's the same, my friends are the same. I want to wake up from this dream-like reality that keeps breaking for the sake of me and everybody else that I can think of. For those of us, how should we keep ourselves in order to get there quickly, to wake up, to reach a state of enlightenment, Buddha, to awake? Yeah. And this is what the Buddha said. Can you read it? Thanks. He did. He said this. I'll read it. This Subhuti, this is how those who have entered well into the way of the Bodhisattvas, those people that want to reach enlightenment quickly, must think to themselves as they feel this wish to achieve enlightenment for the sake of everyone. This is what you should think, he says, right? Anthony, you want to read the next one?
Sure.
Yeah.
I will bring to nirvana the total amount of living beings.
So nirvana is a state where you are completely free of any troubles. Your mind has freed itself from any negative movement at all. You experience everything free of negativity. Yeah, nirvana. It's not like a heaven over there. It's a state of being. Yeah, sorry.
Every single one numbered among the ranks of living kind. However many living beings there are, in whatever realms there may be, anyone at all labeled with the name of living being, all these will I bring to total nirvana, to the sphere beyond all grief, where none of the parts of the person are left at all.
Mm-hmm. Parts of a person, those of you who studied the 5 heaps, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. The essence, he's saying, you know, you really want to wake up. You really want to wake up quickly. You're unsatisfied with your shitty boss, with your breaking bank account, with the girlfriend or the boyfriend. You're fed up with this worldly way of being. You're not going anywhere. You're still going to be there, right? But you can shift your perspective. You can reach nirvana, and the way you get there faster is if you say, I'm going to reach that, and I'm going to help every single being that is crawling on this planet go there, right? That's a huge task, right? It's one of the problems we had in the meditation retreat. It's like, I want to help every living being. Let's go feed everybody in Africa. We can't. We're limited right now, so it's this tension. How can I do that, right? But the Buddha said that's what you need to do. You need to go and get everybody in that state of complete bliss in nirvana. It's like, damn, that's hard. And then he says, yet, even if you do manage to bring this limitless number of living beings to total nirvana, there will be no living being at all who was brought to total nirvana. Whoa, trippy. Yeah? And here is the secret of what the sutra is all about. At the moment, they're just words, right? 2 enlightened beings talking to each other. Beings who have truly woken up, right? The Buddha, historical being, says, I figured it out. It's not that I invented it out. I reached a state where I could see something that I couldn't see before. I Buddha, and I woke up, yeah? And I saw what I previously couldn't see. This stuff I saw in a different way. It's not like you disappeared and I'm in nirvana, okay? It's like this stuff I saw in a completely different way, and now it's true. Before it was like a dream, this engagement I had with the world. It was not true. Now I see, for real. Mean it, yeah. Right, so he woke up. He didn't invent it, he woke up, right? He saw what was it. He's like, when you get to be there, if you want to get there, you should bring everyone else there too. And if you really want to get there, when they come there, none of them have gotten there at all. It's like he's talking from another realm. He's talking from something that makes no sense to us in the way we are looking at it, right? Here is the secret. He said labeled living being, yeah? So the fundamental message of this, go help everybody, and when you help them, no one will be helped. Right? It's doing something to the way we think of helping, to the way we think of reality working. And it's challenging the way we normally think things are. And there is the rub. The way we think things are ain't the way things are. If they were, we'd be happy, because we'd be engaging with the way things are. What? So the most important thing about the entire sutra is the title. And it gives us a hint of why that weird statement is there at all. Because the rest of the sutra is a bunch of conversations going, you want to do that and that and that, and when you do that, it wouldn't happen. And that's how you make it happen. And you're like, what? And it's full of comments like that, which really pitch your mind in a different space once you get to understand what the words are talking about. So the secret in the title is the Diamond Sutra in Sanskrit. For those of you who studied before, is the Vajra Cherika. In Tibetan, Dorje Chupa. Cool. So Vajra meaning diamond, thunderbolt, it's diamond, yeah. Cherika is cutter, to cut. Or Dorje Chupa in Tibetan. Dor is stone, Je is king, or the ultimate, or the highest, the king of stones. Dorje is the diamond. There's nothing harder in all the stone kingdom than the diamond. Nothing can cut a diamond except another diamond. Everything else is inferior to the diamond, yeah? And it's a play on something. So for some reason, the The dialogue in the sutra is saying, if you want to do this, and when you've done it, it wouldn't have done, and that's how you do it. Okay? The entire sutra is like that. You follow me so far? Because you're going to get that over and over. You want to reach something amazing, you've got to do this. When you do it, it's not done. And that's how it's done. And something about that smells of otherworldly to us because we're not familiar with it. That makes no sense in the normal way of engaging the world. Yeah. So here, Dorje, the king of stones, the diamond is a metaphor in Buddhism, a metaphor for, does anyone know?
Emptiness.
Emptiness, good. So the diamond is a metaphor for emptiness, which is a huge topic, okay? And it's so simple, we miss it, and that's why it's hard. So I'm going to give you a little bit about the metaphor of the diamond relating to emptiness and why the sutra is called, or this whole teaching is called, you want to get enlightened? Something to do the cutter of a diamond. Yeah? So the diamond being a metaphor for emptiness, see if I can give you, emptiness being the way things ultimately exist. When you want to find out the way reality really is, yeah, not the reality we are engaging with because we are limited by our senses. We are experiencing something. Is that true together? Yeah, we call this room Hector's words, I'm confused, it's hot, or this is exciting. Whatever you're experiencing, we share this experience together. Yeah, but you're experiencing that through these things, through these things, through these things. Yeah, tasting, touching, and so on. And that's a human way of engaging with these sounds that are coming out of my mouth. Da, 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 da. Sounds have meanings, have words. I bring a puppy dog in here, and those sounds don't have the same meaning. I say diamond cutter, and the puppy dog's like da 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 da, da 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 da, right? But the words are the same. My sounds are the same. You hear diamond cutter, and very quickly your mind begins to label that with a meaning. Yeah, I propose the dog also labels it with a meaning, but it ain't your meaning. Yeah, visually we're looking at a room through human eyes, a limited spectrum of light we are able to see. Other beings, exactly the same room, different spectrum of light, right? They access a broader spectrum, a more narrow spectrum, same room, two realities. Yeah? So each of us have a reality. Who had the pen? Here we go. Sorry, I have to do it. Yeah. This is a pencil. Thank you. I got it. Thank you. Should work better with a pencil. Okay. The classic way of explaining emptiness, and this is probably the most important thing we'll talk tonight, and next week we'll talk about what this experience feels like viscerally and how to get there viscerally, okay? But the simplest way to explain what seems to be a hard idea, emptiness, which is actually a simple idea, is that this object has no penness from its own side. It ain't a pen. The pen is not a pen. That's why it's a pen. It's exactly like the sutra. Yeah? This object cannot be pen. And we're all like going, no, but it's a pen. Yeah? Do we agree it's a pen? Yeah, write with it. If you don't agree with me, then never use it to write with, right? Is this object a pen? Yeah. Is it a pen in there from its own side, this thing being pen? We think so, but under analysis, it can't be. The real nature of this thing is much more than that. Our human connection with this object is what makes it a pen, is what the Buddha is proposing. If you get this and then jump a little bit and apply to other things in your life, it will radically shift your entire world. It will open a world to you that is always there. and you can't reach it without getting it intellectually first, okay? Is this a pen? Yes. Is pen coming from this object to me, pen? I think so, right? It feels like it. And then to prove it, I go, let's find that puppy dog and say, hey, look at my pen. And if you think through it, do they see pen? They cannot see pen. Otherwise, they would try and do that with it and go, oh, it's a pen. You know, as silly as that sounds, pen would force you to do certain things with it. It functions in a specific way. For puppy dogs, it's not pen. It's like, I'm salivating already, and I can't wait for you to let go of my perfect chew toy, and whatever stupid thing you're doing with it is not what it's intended to be. It's a chew toy for a dog. So here is this one object. Humans see it as pen. Animals see it as chew toy. Is that fair? Yeah. What is it by itself? If all the dogs leave and all the humans leave, what is it? If I put it there and we all disappear, this is like the tree falling in the forest. Right? What is it with no dogs and no humans? Ah, that's a clever answer. Very good. Let's yeah. No, she's correct. It depends which school of thinking we're in. Yeah. We're going to higher school. We're going for the kill. Yeah.
It doesn't. It's Schrodinger's cat's.
When does it become pen?
Well,
Some perceiver, some being connecting with that object, let's say visually, humans walk into the room and it becomes pen. Humans leave, dogs come in, it's only chew toy. Yeah. Second part of the proof. So there's something in us forcing us to experience this object the way we are experiencing it, which we call pen. Yeah. There's something in dogs forcing them to experience this same object, not as pen, but as something to chew on, salivate, and enjoy. True? Yeah. And we think this, we think we're right and dogs are wrong. Yeah. They're stupid, we're clever. If that was true, then there must be some penness, some particles of pen pushing themselves out, yeah? Forcing everybody to see this as pen. If that were true, then dogs must see it as pen. If it was pen coming to us, yeah? If it was radiating out pen. And that's not true. Otherwise, everybody would see it as pen. So it's not pen by itself. It requires something in us which here's the third part of the proof, we don't control. If we did control it, why would you even bother seeing this stupid thing as pen? Why wouldn't you see it as a bar of gold? Why wouldn't you see it as a elixir? Like, why wouldn't you if it was up to you to decide? You're not even deciding it's pen, and yet it's pen for you. Dog's not even deciding chew toy, and it's chew toy for it. If we had choice, we could wish it into being. You know, like New Age movements, there's mistaken the idea of emptiness, yeah, and dependent origination, thinking, if I wish it, yeah, no, if you wish it's still a pen that runs out, you idiot, yeah. No, it's true, yeah. And so there is something in us forcing this experience. You can simplify it if that's too hard and say, I like this pen, I didn't like that pencil. Where did the like come from? Did it come this way? If it came this way, everybody must like it. Some people like it, some people. Music is like that for you guys. Who's got like their favorite Spotify list and you make your friend listen to it and they're like, yeah, it's okay. And you're like, no, but don't you see? It's amazing. Let me share. It's like, oh, I've got my own. Yeah, and we're forever debating about, we think stuff holds natures. Yeah, it is a nice pen or it is a pen. Dogs are wrong, humans are right. My music's good, your music's bad. Yeah, and we're forever holding these views that we think are coming from objects. Emptiness, all emptiness means, and this is the punchline, okay? If you've gotten those firm ideas, emptiness is just the fact that this has no nature of being pen from its own side. that its nature is dependent on me as the observer. I don't choose it, but it's dependent. There's something in me forcing a pen, something in dogs forcing a chew toy. Yeah? This then is empty of being pen by itself or being chew toy by itself, which the implication is, you got that? It's so simple, you miss it, right? It's so simple. If this had penness, everything that had a mind that I put it in front must think, oh, pen. Yeah, if you want to make it simpler, nice pen. There'll be nobody that will be forced to see bad pen. Yeah? Because it has its power. And that's not true. This is empty of having that power. We all follow that? Because if you got that, the implications for your life are massive. And don't let your mind get distracted. If that's true for this, it has no nature. But there's something in me forcing me to have this experience, which is better than the dogs. Yeah? Assuming writing letters is better than chewing on things. Then it's true for this object. There ain't no lovely flowers that smell fragrantly from their own side, emanating good, nice flowers. Prove it. Some people are allergic. If it's true for that, then it's true for this. There is no wall, there's no room, there's no reaching enlightenment from its own side. Do you see the implications? There is no troubled boyfriend that you are not dependently arising, creating your experience of. Because you remove the experience, and this becomes what? Complete potential. It could be anything dependent on who's engaging with them. So then the big question is like, who the hell put all that shit in there in the first place? Right? And that is the study of karma, dependent origination. We'll talk about it another time. But for now, you've got to get the substrate, the real reality, the ultimate way things exist, is that things are empty of having a nature of being the way you think they are. There is no reality that is independent of your engaging with it, independent of your projecting something onto it unwittingly. And if you get that, which you can through study and practice and course it to get, it will shift the way you live in this world. And you will have unparalleled grounding, unshakable grounding, because you're dealing with reality at its ultimate reality, which is, you can't get more ultimate than that, harder than that. And there is the metaphor of the diamond. Yet that ultimate way that things exist, meaning they lack any nature at all from their own side, they are all dependent on us. Yeah? You can't get bigger than that, more stronger than that, more deeper than that. That is the way things are. They are empty of having any nature, and all natures are dependent on us. We'll then investigate what makes those natures, yeah? Because you can make those natures wake you up. But if you get that, then that is the metaphor of the diamond. Beings who have had this realization in meditation, and all the commentaries say so, including this sutra, say that they search for a metaphor to say, what is the closest thing to that ultimate, that all-encompassing nature that understanding gives me? What's the closest thing in the physical world that I can come up with that will remind me that all things are ultimately empty? And so the metaphor of the diamond comes up as the hardest thing. In our physical world, the diamond is the closest we have to an ultimate thing. Yeah, and the most important one is its hardness. It's ultimately hard. No other stone can cut a diamond except for a diamond, and it doesn't even scratch it, it actually breaks it. Yeah? So there's grooves and it just breaks. It doesn't even scratch it. So no diamond can scratch another diamond. So the metaphor of an ultimate thing, meaning its ultimate nature is it doesn't have a nature. Weird, right? The closest thing we have in the physical world is that diamonds are the closest thing we can come up with. They are ultimate in the sense of being the hardest thing. Is that cool? Yeah. When you see a yellow number, by the way, they might be the homework questions for this course and the answers. The next metaphor for why diamond is an important thing in the title is that, like I said, this doesn't have a nature, it has an emptiness, right? What's its emptiness? The fact that
It wouldn't exist without a perceiving.
it can't exist as a pen without me perceiving it as a pen. Yeah? It is empty of being a pen without my perception. Yeah? Forced upon me by something inside me. Yeah? So it's empty of being this, whatever you think this is, without a perceiving. Yeah? And that has an emptiness, and that has an emptiness. And this has an emptiness, and absolutely everything, physical and non-physical, is equally the same. It is everything that you place your mind on is empty of being that thing you experience without your mind on it. It doesn't have a nature until your mind goes on it. And your mind goes on it. I'll give you an example. You have a feeling. It's a good feeling or a bad feeling. Your tummy hurts. It's a good tummy hurt or a bad tummy hurt, dependent on your mind labeling it a certain way. Not chosen. You have a sensation, very quickly you label it. It has a quality to it, right? It is empty of being that. It's just a sensation until you are forced to experience it as good or bad. Yeah. The thing that I love thinking about is the heart rate going very fast. Who's had that? The palpitations. Who's had palpitations, right? Good or bad? Not good, bad. What if it's just because you love someone and you're excited to see them? Same palpitation, yeah? So I know if I've had palpitations, I'm like, I'm nervous, I'm gonna have a heart attack, right? But when I'm in love and I see someone and have exactly the same fast heart rate, I'm like, good, I can't wait. Boom, 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 boom. Love, boom, 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 boom. Fear, death. Boom, 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 boom. Empty of having either of those qualities, yeah? But something really did feel like my heart's gonna stop and I'm gonna have a heart attack, yeah? Something really did feel like I'm excited to see them and I'm totally in love. That comes from us. The heart being empty of having both those qualities. Make sense? You sure? Cool. So the second part of why diamond is a metaphor is that it's all around us and we can't see it. This is empty, that is empty, this is empty, that is empty. And it's always available to us. We are surrounded, we're swimming in it, and we can't see it. Like the diamond, being perfectly clear. You know when you create a pane of glass that is thick and you put it to the side and it looks green or blue? Yeah, because it's got impurities in it. Diamonds don't have those impurities. If you created a wall as thick as this room, you could not tell there was a wall between us because it was a perfect diamond would be perfectly clear. So I would see you just exactly the same way I see you now, and I wouldn't know that there's a diamond between us because it's perfectly clear. So just so perfectly clear. And well, and every particle, every instance of emptiness is exactly 100% the same as every other instance of emptiness. Yeah? If you get this, it will shift your world. All these three, meaning the way you understand this to be empty of having a nature is exactly the same as that being empty of having a nature. Meaning there is no way that this could be anything other than what I'm projecting. There could be nothing there without my projection in the way that I experience it. Make sense? Yeah? Every emptiness is exactly the same. The emptiness the Buddha, an enlightened being, free from suffering, is perceiving is exactly the same emptiness that you yourself will have when you have this direct experience of emptiness. There's 100% exactly the same. So in those three ways, when you break a diamond, the molecules of each diamond are exactly the same, pure carbon. Yeah? Doesn't matter how tiny or how big, it's exactly the same. So every sliver of a diamond is 100% perfect diamond. So just like a diamond, the emptiness, the ultimate nature of things, is all around us and we can't see it. It's clear like the diamond. Every single instance is exactly the same, like every particle of diamond, if you were to smash a diamond, they're all 100% equally the same. And it's the closest thing to a ultimate thing, the ultimate hardness. There's nothing harder that would stretch a diamond. So for those reasons, the title is called the Diamond Sutra. So now we go, well, hold on, what about the cutter? What about the cutter part? And who can tell me that, since we're doing partly review?
Well, this is more ultimate. The wisdom that's contained in this sutra is more ultimate than all of the ways that you're describing a diamond to be.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is that it will interact with your perception of the world in such a pure, intense, clear, perfect way that it would exceed the qualities of the maybe
Close. It's funny because some commentaries would say that. So this is such powerful wisdom. It will just like a diamond cut everything, make you see through the illusion clearly, etc. But the way
emptiness of emptiness.
Yeah.
Is it about the emptiness of
no,
emptiness?
it's about the direct perception of emptiness versus the metaphor of a diamond. So, imagine for a second that what we've just talked about becomes a habit of investigation in your mind. You're walking through the day and you begin to learn to investigate and see its wisdom. You're looking for its emptiness. Yeah? Why did I have a great day at work? You look for the emptiness of that situation. Could the great day at work have come from someone giving me a pay raise? Yeah? Is that why I feel great? If you're investigating it with the wisdom that understands emptiness, you would know that pay rises, those ones, pay raises. Don't be racist. Pay raises don't have the nature of making you happy. They're like, bullshit, I want a pay raise. Rise. Yeah? If they did, you would still be happy about the last time they raised your pay. Right? If raising your pay made you happy, you should all be happy already. You've all had your pay raised at some point. Why aren't you happy? Oh, but I want more. Oh, that's a different thing. So if pay raisins, had a nature of making you happy,
you'd be grateful.
all the time. Grateful. I'm going to throw the pen at you. So I walked out of the office today, they gave me extra pay, yeah? And I felt awesome. Did my awesomeness come from the extra pay? It seemed to, didn't it? This seems to be a pen. But under investigation, impossible. It must have been something else. So imagine you are people walking around your world, getting a buzz out of good things and getting sad about terrible things, and deeply investigating where the hell these came from. What are the ultimate places these things came from? They came from something in me, but ultimately there's no way that situation could have caused that feeling, even though the feeling was good. Yeah? Imagine you become scientists at that. If you do that enough, and a bunch of other things, which include meditating, taking care of your world, blah, 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 we'll cover it next class, you could come to a place where you have a direct, visceral experience in meditation on what we just covered. If you get busy trying to find the emptiness of everything and make a habit of it, at some point in meditation, if you've got that practice, you will get to a point where your mind has stilled enough to a point where you could see how it is that things don't have a nature and that your mind is creating every nature. And when you are there in that very experience viscerally, something shifts in you completely. You see the ultimate nature of reality for the very first time in a state of meditation. That's called the direct perception of emptiness. It's very different to the intellectual perception of emptiness, which we're having right now. You all are having a perception of emptiness right now. We did it about this, we did it about that, yeah? We did it about the raisins. But that is not it. That is getting you to a point where you could viscerally know it. Yeah, and the best, and I know it's crude, but the best example I can give you about that is before you were a sexual person, before you had sex, as a young person, you imagined what sexy times were like, right? I remember getting it completely wrong, yeah? And my sister's boyfriend having to out me in public and say, no, you don't put it there, you put it there, you know? What? Where is there? I didn't know there existed. Anyway, that's it. I still don't think. Anyway, another story. Different story. You have an intellectual idea of sex, yeah? But the first time you actually have sex, the first time you actually feel sexually engaged there and in the act, that's completely different to the ideas you had, right? For most of us, that's worse. No. Most of us actually is, but from what I understand. But very different, nowhere near, not even close to the conceptions you have as a young teenager or kid imagining being a sexual adult. When you're actually a sexual adult, the very first time, that's very different. The third time, even worse. The 10th, the 50th, anyway, you get the idea. Having an intellectual understanding of emptiness is nothing like knowing, really knowing. And you can get there. You can get there through practice and habit. And that's called having the direct perception of emptiness. We'll get to talk about that experience and the courses for that experience next class. But what I need to tell you here is that when you have that experience, you begin your journey to really waking up. Until then, it was all training. It was all imagining. Yeah? Because for the very first time in your entire existence, you are actually in accord with the way things are, not the way you thought they were. For the very first time, and when you come out of that experience, your mind goes quickly searching for a metaphor. It recognizes the diamond as the metaphor, as an ultimate thing. I just saw an ultimate thing. There is nothing bigger than that, because that is all of it. And that realization cuts the metaphor of the diamond. It's so much more ultimate than how hard a diamond is. Does that make sense? Diamond is the closest thing you can come to an ultimate. How close? Not close at all. And so the real experience cuts the metaphor. And that's why it's very important not to think of this as the Diamond Sutra. It's the Diamond Cutter Sutra. Because yes, the wisdom that you will get from learning these ideas, placing your mind in a state where you could find the emptiness of every experience, get really good at it, begin to practice it, and then have a visceral internal experience of it, that cuts the metaphor of this intellectual understanding that we have about emptiness. Make sense? Cool. So that, I think that's what I wrote. Jedika, metaphor, emptiness. We're doing good, people. Three more concepts, if I may. So far, we learned a fundamental thing in Buddhist thought, the idea of emptiness. You all have a fairly clear, I think, understanding of emptiness, at least intellectually. Do you agree? Yeah? It's not blanking out. It's not, I see black and it's all very mystical. That's bullshit. That's wasting your life. That ain't going to help you wake up. Yeah? This will help you. This pen, yeah, will help you. But here's the implication. If what I just explained really is the way emptiness, as described by the Buddha, is, if that's emptiness, then the implications are life-changing. Because if you know what it is about you that's forcing the experience of this as a pen and not a chew toy, then you can go to the ultimate nature of it and change the courses so you see it, yes, as a diamond or as an object to enlighten beings and not just a pen. And for you, that is what it is, if that's being forced upon you. If you know what it is that is forcing your experience of this, then this object can be the one that wakes up every being that you're pointing it to. For real. Just like it's for real, a chew toy for a dog. And just like it is for real, a writing implement for a person. If you have the right things being forced upon it, and we'll get to think about that, then you could change this because you don't have a nature. It could be anything. It could be the one to awaken. No contradiction. Make sense? You know, we've got to find those courses then, because it's potential. It's potential. So we better find those courses. Except we've got no time. We're dying quickly. Tick-tock, 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 tick-tock. This takes time to generate an experience of it. So to try and get there fast, we've got to understand what emptiness is empty of. Yeah, so I want to clarify some things. It's not blanking out. It's not everything is black and somehow that's going to get me enlightened. No, close your eyes. You should be enlightened every time you fall asleep. If it's thinking of black, that don't help anyone. Yeah, really it doesn't. So get clear on what emptiness is, then work it, because it's not the only answer. You have to figure out what's projecting your reality. So to get there, you would have heard in Buddhist thought, one of the first things I thought when I heard of Buddhist thought was this idea of no self. Right? Who's heard of that? No self. Yeah. Who mistook that initially to say I don't exist? Yeah, I did. I'm like, oh shit, I've got it. I'm not existing. You know, oh, who's saying me? Who's saying I don't exist? You know, like these Buddhists, they're trippy, man. Cool. Or whatever I said in Spanish, mate. When you hear no self in Buddhist thought, it's just saying this pen has no self nature. That's all. It's not that you don't exist. Otherwise, I'd be talking to no one. Yeah? And no one would be listening. And if I was going to say that in the Diamond Sutra way, I would say, no one is listening, that's why everyone heard me. And what that means, it's code for there is nobody listening that exists from its own side, yeah? And because there's nobody listening from its own side, that's why you could hear me. Because it's your projections on the sounds. Yeah? You'll get used to this in the Diamond Sutra. We only got 2 classes. So in Buddhist thought, we have to find this thing called the gaccha, the thing that we deny, the thing that emptiness is empty of, the thing. You've got to picture what a thing would be like if it wasn't empty. If there really was a pen from this own side, then what would that look like? We've got to think that, because then that's what we're going to go looking for and never find. Yeah? Does that make sense? So it's this idea of the gaccha, the thing that we deny exists at all. A pen that is a pen from its own side. That does not exist, could never exist, has never existed, will never exist. What do you mean? If this object was a pen from its own side, it must be radiating penness, right? Yeah, by itself. Then every perceiver must see it as pen. And that is not true, because there is at least one perceiver that doesn't see it as pen. It's called the puppy though, right? So that's it. We just got to come to a point where we imagine what would that thing be if it was self-existent. And that thing is an impossible thing, a thing that could never exist. Yeah, a pen that was a pen from its own side does not exist, right? Why? Puppy dog could never exist. Why? It would never change. If this was pen by itself, it would always stay being pen. Never a little bit less pen, never a little bit more pen. It is just pen, nothing else, because its power is pen. Yeah, you couldn't use it to pick your nose. You couldn't use it to dig a hole in the snow. It's a pen, and only a pen. And that is not true for this object. Yeah. So The captcha is an important thing we should know. It's something that doesn't exist, never existed, could never have existed. It's something that did not exist by virtue of, it's something that does not exist without our projections on it. Does that make sense? Yeah. Let me see if I wrote that something. It did not exist by virtue of our perception, forced upon us by what we call past karma. Now, we covered emptiness. We covered what emptiness is empty of. We covered the metaphor of the diamond and why it's cut. Do you think you've got that? Yeah. The implication for that, for a person that wants to wake up, do you remember the first question Subhuti asked?
How should we do?
Yeah, it's like, listen, I'm tired of this world being this way. I want to wake up, really wake up, and I want all my friends to wake up too. What should we do? How should we think? Yeah, and the Buddha said, trippy, do this, but when you do it, you don't do it, that's why you do it. The implications of this not being a pen from its own side, when applied to you as a person who wants to wake up, are immense. Who thinks this might still be a cylinder even though it's not a pen? Who thinks this has cylinderness in it? I do too, right? It's like, surely it's got cylinderness, right? And if it had cylinderness, then when I did show it to a dog, he or she must think, I like that chewable cylinder, right? And that's a stretch already for us, right? Or it's cylinder for me because I can feel it on my fingers, this curved notion. But when you investigate the curved notion that tells me it's a cylinder, it's just pressure points on my fingers that my mind is constructing into a cylinder. Yeah, and it's cylinderness, emptiness. And there are other proofs and so on and so on. It's like a never-ending regression that whatever you start looking for, you can't find. And then you go, well, what about this part of it? You can't find that either. What about that part of it? You can't find that either. Another way of doing that is you can say, oh, I know it's a pen because it's got the top of the pen and the bottom of the pen. When I put the top and the bottom together, it's a pen. Yeah? Okay, let's look at the top of the pen then. What makes that a top of the pen? Well, it's got the clicker and it's got the thing. How do you know it's the top of the pen? Does it have the top of the pen and the bottom of the top of the pen? Yeah. And your mind is constructing it together when I see that part and that part. And what about all the way down to the infinitesimal particle? And then you go, well, the top of the particle or the bottom of the particle? What makes it a particle? Yeah, and your mind will just go into this infinite regression, finding ultimately nothing that has a nature. Is there something though? Yeah, I'm using it as a pen. Don't think emptiness means that the pen doesn't exist means that the pen doesn't exist. Don't think that the pen doesn't exist means the pen doesn't exist. Are you following what I'm saying? Yes. Because that's wrong. It exists. Just not the way we think it is. Now, if that's true for pen, sorry for revisiting over and over, but what I'm about to say, I hope you take home tonight and you dream about it. And I hope the dreams are frightening, so you keep thinking about it, okay? Cursed you now. Now, if that is true for this cylinder, yeah? Actually, do this trick. It's my favorite trick. I did it to her for the first time, and I want to do it again. Pick up your cylinders on your left hand, please. Yeah, and look at it for a second. Try not to think of it as a pen. Just see the shiny object and the dullness or the curvature, whatever it is, just try not to let your mind call it a pen. Look at it for the visual data that's coming in through your senses. The eye doesn't know pen, the eye just knows colors and shapes. So just look for the colors and shapes. And get lost in it for a second going, whoa, man, that's trippy. Yeah, or whatever you do. Can you feel from what we've talked about that it doesn't have that nature, that something in your mind is forcing that nature? Can you feel that? When you blank it out as pen and your mind forces you to see pen, And for a second, you see shapes and you see the reflection of the light. You don't quite see pen yet. You see the reflection and the shape. Okay. That is empty of being pen. Something in your mind is forcing that. Now I'm going to ask you to shift your mind from that cylinder to the 5 cylinders holding it. They also don't have a nature of being fingers from their own side. Something in your mind is forcing you to call them fingers. And not just visually, but the sensation. And the same for holding it, the energy that's holding up the big cylinder that has the 5 cylinders. You call it arm, and the energy, you call it energy. So you can come back to the room if you're not tripping out on cylinders. But there's something in that, okay? The sutra then goes to talk about the bodies of a Buddha and blah, 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 but the implication is that the thing you experience as your body also is empty of being just a human body. If you had the wrong things forcing you to perceive this cylinder, instead of an arm, you'd see it as a paw or a cockroach leg or something, yeah? That makes, like seriously, if it's not coming this way, if reality is coming this way, and that something lets you experience this as something useful and good, like an arm that I can control, that's awesome. But if it doesn't have that nature and something else is forcing it, awesome. And if it wasn't so awesome, if it was a little shitty, it might be not such a good cylinder. And if it was a little bit better than arm, aging arm, because it's awesome, but it's aging, yeah? It's breaking, elbow problems. What if it was a little bit more awesome than a human arm? If this isn't coming this way, if it's coming from my mind, could I experience this as more than a human arm, this cylinder? It's possible if the theory holds true, right? And therein lies the investigation. This is why it's called practice in Buddhism. You got to practice. Is that true? Can I analyze it? You don't have to believe anything. It's like, does that make sense? Now can I investigate it further? So if that's true, the implication is this thing, and I'm just going to cover the 4 bodies of the Buddha. They call them kayas. They call them kayas, bodies, but they mean parts. Yeah. And there's a division of 2, a division of 3, or a division of 4. I'm going to give you the division of 4. So, but the implication is that you, if you have the right courses, can have a projection of these cylinders, not as flesh and blood and breaking human arms, but you could see bodies of an enlightened being. You could see your body as that of an enlightened being. And the mind, which is a part of the Buddha, instead of your mind, which is sometimes afflicted and sometimes happy, sometimes understanding, sometimes sleepy. Yeah? Not the joke. You could experience your own mind in a way that was unwavering on, enlightened, awake, because it doesn't come from the mind. There's something forcing you to perceive every phenomena in a way that's particular to you. So if you find out what the coding is, you can recode it so your body and your mind does not have to be in a breaking cycle. It can be an ultimate body and mind. This is called the kaya. So you have the rupa kaya, which is talking about the form or the physical part. For those of you who have studied before or went to Nicaragua, what produces a physical experience of your body as bliss and perfect? Only kindness, only being ultimately good towards every other physical creature out there, right? The collection of kindness, if you will, is what forces you to perceive this, not as a breaking, aging thing, but as an infinitely perfect light body of the Buddha. Yeah? And you can divide that into 2. Then the Dharmakaya, traditionally the mental part of, so you have a mental part now and a physical part now. Yeah? So if you knew exactly what to code your mind, what stuff it is that is projecting on an otherwise empty screen of your reality, including your body and mind, if you knew what the code was, you could remove the obstacles that make you hurt and suffer and break, and code it to be ultimately awesome body and awesome mind. Yeah? And so that's called the Rupakaya, is the form or the physical form. In summary, it's just being good, being kind to others. Generates enough of those things that force you to see this as ultimately good. And the same for your mind, that's called the Dharmakaya. For those interested, you can divide them in 3 or 4. I'm going to give you the 4, the Sambhogakaya, or the Tongluk. Tongku is the enjoyment body. And this is what you would be forced to perceive in your own enlightened state as your own body. Yeah? In Buddhist terms, it means your paradise body, the body you experience when you're enlightened in your enlightened setting. Because the world, does it come this way or does it come that way? According to this theory, it's coming this way, right? So if you were enlightened, if you've perfected your mind, which is forcing you to perceive everything as perfected, you would have an experience of being in this room and you could not see anything wrong with this room. On the contrary, everything would just bring you to bliss. Yeah? And every being in the room, you would see as equally perfect and sublime and blissful and beautiful. Because is it coming from the beings? Is it coming from the beings? No, it can't. It's coming from the perceiver. So imagine that you coded it enough, the code was good enough for you to perceive your world, this world, not traveling to heaven in a cloud, okay? This world, your mind would flip and you would see this world as a bunch of perfected beings, and you'd look down at your body, your Sambhogakaya, and you would call that your enjoyment body. It'd be made of light, be beautiful, there's all this stuff about it, right? Enjoyment body. A millisecond after enlightenment, you have this thing called the Nirmanakaya, or the projection body, emanation body, right? That involuntarily projects a form to any being that is ready to experience it or needs it. Involuntarily, because you've coded it, because you've created the courses, you will be sitting there going, I'm blissing out, yeah? I'm having a good time with all my buddies and friends who I see as perfected, and everyone's just blissed out. But involuntarily, I am sending out at this, beyond the speed of light, the speed of thought, involuntarily to anybody that needs to experience an enlightened being. And they say it can be in 4 shapes, it can be in the real form of here is who I am, like I am to the beings in my paradise. It can be as a emanation of a deer crossing the road and looking you in the eye, and you're like, something weird, man. Oh dear. Sorry, it could be inanimate. Oh, thanks very much. It could be a joke. No. It could be a dad joke. Steven's hating it, sorry. Just my Nirmanakaya isn't reaching. It could be an inanimate object, yeah, anything. Now, do inanimate objects have Buddha qualities?
Yes. Yes.
For whom? Yeah. For the perceiver, yeah. For the perceiver. A perceiver can see a rock.
So it's emptiness dependent on the perceiver.
Maybe.
Yes.
Maybe. That's the emptiness of emptiness. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, you get the idea, right? If it's all a projection, you could be projecting a human body, you could be projecting a crappier body, or you could be projecting an enjoyment body. Yeah. It's also possible, if you've created the courses, to be able to see yourself capable of projecting an entity to anybody that needs it in a dream, as a deer, whatever. You would see yourself doing that as your emanation body. Then your mind, Dharmakaya, has 2 parts. I'm going to call it the wisdom body, which in essence, it's the omniscience of the Buddha's mind. Your mind capable of knowing all things knowable. Note, this is different to omnipotence, okay? Not all powerful, but all knowing. In other words, and not necessarily knowing exactly how many atoms are in the floorboards, because that's a relative thing. But more importantly, knowing exactly what needs to be given up and what needs to be taken up for you to be free of suffering and reach a state of enlightenment yourself. You, individually, personally. Yeah? So the omniscience of the Buddha's mind, known as the Yeshe Chupu, or the wisdom body, is one part of the Dharmakaya. And then the last part, which is a little tricky, is the emptiness of all the other three parts. They are not self-existently that way. They are also projections forced upon you by your past deeds. Yeah? So if you wanted to know the division of 4, that's what they are. If you want to know the division of 3, it would be Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya, and Dharmakaya. If you want the division of 2, it's Rupakaya and Dharmakaya. All we're saying here, after 2,500 years of study in the Buddha speaking, he's saying you can just change this body and this mind from being stuck in the limits of the perceptions you think you are. You think you're human. This collection of body and mind, you think you are fixed that way. And I say bullshit. Because if you were, you would always be exactly the same. And you're not. You are a changing thing. And changing things depend on other changing things. The causes of a changing thing, there's something that made you this way. It doesn't have to stay this way. Yeah? Who used to hate tomato soup when you were a kid? Who loves it later? Just me. Yeah, okay. You know, simple, silly example. Who used to think of depressing music as sad and melancholy and terrible? And who later thought of it as beautiful and powerful and emotional and lovely? It's not in the stuff. Something in you has shifted. And these are just tiny incremental shifts that we do blindly. This is a technology that says you can do it purposefully. You can change your body and your mind. Who goes to the gym to work out, to change their body? Well, you can change it incrementally. You know, I don't. You can change it incrementally. Yeah, this is a radical shift if you get to the substrate of what it is that's causing our experience of this universe. So I want to share a little bit of one last thing, right? Because remember the question was, how do I get out of this suffering cycle quickly? How do I become a superhero and an enlightened being now? Yeah, he says, well, try and get everybody free from suffering urgently. And when they get there, they wouldn't have gotten there, and that's how you get there, right? So then the Buddha starts talking to Subhuti about how to make that journey more powerful, and he talks about giving. And you'll see in your homework, saying, well, in the activity of giving, how do you make giving a very powerful imprint in your mind that will then force you to experience the results of giving, which is getting. So you give wisdom, you get wisdom. Yeah, you give kindness, you get kindness. You give everybody the idea that they're absolutely beautiful. You look for everybody's perfection, and everybody helps you see your, yeah? What if you do it to everybody minus 5 people? Then you can't say everybody. Yeah, there'll be a tiny section of your world still broken. Yeah, everybody, 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 everybody. We got that? So then the Buddha goes into this. If you want to make this journey really fast, let's talk about giving. Now, for those of you who have studied before, giving is one of the 6 perfections. So here he's talking about giving as an example of also for the other 5 perfections again. So he says, Why is that? Think, O Subhuti, of the mountains of merit collected by bodhisattvas who perform the act of giving without staying. This merit, O Subhuti, is something not something that could easily ever measure. That you could easily ever measure. He's saying, and then the sutra goes on for pages to say, how vast is the universe to my right? The Buddha asks, and Subhuti says, oh, it's so vast, it's infinite. Good, how is it to my left? It's so vast, it's infinite. How big to the sky? Oh, it's infinite. And what if there are planets on this universe as many as there are sands of grains in the Ganges River? Yeah? How many planets would there be if every one of those grains were itself a universe? Whoa, so many, yeah? And how much merit, how much goodness, how many kindnesses have you planted in your mind if you imagined you could fill every one of those with all the treasures ever imagined, covered every one of those worlds and offered them to someone? How much goodness would you have created? And Subhuti goes, so much. A lot. A lot. Yeah? He's like, that's right, Subhuti. You would have done a lot. Now that is nothing in comparison to those that are able to give without staying. What? You want to imprint your mind with so much potential that regardless the emptiness, you will project nothing but virtue. You could do that even bigger than giving to every planet and filling every planet with jewels of this and the rest, as many as grains of sands in the Ganges River, if every grain of sand was itself a universe with as many grains of sands in them, right? Way more goodness in your mind if you were able to give without staying. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about, well, how do I do that? Yeah. Someone want to read the next one? Rachel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would it be easy to measure the space to the south of us, or to the north of us, or above us, or below us, or in any of the ordinal directions from us? Would it be easy to measure the space to any of the 10 directions from where we now stand? And just so, O Subhuti, it would be no easy thing to measure the mountains of merit collected by any bodhisattva who performs the act of giving without staying.
Mm-hmm. Confused yet? Cool. So let me give you how to perfect giving, or how to give without staying, or sometimes I'll say give without seeing. Yeah? What does it mean to not see, to give and not see, to give and not stay? The summary is to be able to do the act of giving without thinking that any part of it has a nature of its own. In other words, if you want to create way more power in your perception of what the world is, begin the practice, start with giving, because there's practice of ethics, there's practice of patience, and the rest. Begin with giving. Practice giving without staying in the idea that things have a nature of their own. So how do we do that? Because if you do that, then every act of giving is so powerful, so much more powerful than filling the entire universe with jewels. Yeah? So we sometimes call this the 3 spheres. So the act of giving can be ultra powerful if you, as you are doing the act of giving, you can think of the emptiness of the giver, which is you. Yeah. So I'll give you a practical example and something that is worth trying in New York City. So if you're in a park, you got a little cookie, or you got a little bit of bread or something, and you see all these birds around. Okay. Are they birds from their own sides? Ultimately, do they appear as birds to you? Yeah. Is that what they really are? No. Are you just a human giving bread to a bird? That's how you perceive yourself, right? Is that what you ultimately are? Could be. Just like the pen? No. Right? That's not your nature. Your nature is so much more. You're stuck in this way because something caused it. You want to change that? This is how to do it. What about the act of giving itself? The act that you're capable of feeding another creature. Does that have a nature by itself? that when I give this piece of chewy thing to that thing, they eat and they feel full. Is that got a nature by itself that way? Or is that also created by the projections of your mind? Right? So that's all it is. The emptiness of the giver, the emptiness of the act of giving, and the emptiness of the recipient. So in a practical sense, if you are able to begin to habituate your every interaction, there's nothing else there, right? I'm sitting in my park bench in Central Park or Union Square, I've got my cookie, and I see these little birds, and I flick a little piece of bread or cookie to them. And as I'm thinking this, I'm like, here's a Hector dropping some bread on the floor for the bird. You could think that way. That will be an imprint in your mind that must have a result. And that result would just be boring Hector giving bread to a thing. Or you could say, what's really happening and why did I get here? What could have caused me to be able to give, to be able to perceive that I give? I am empty of that nature. I am forced to perceive this because of some giving I did in the past, some awesomeness I did in the past. I could then, in this moment, pretend to think that with this food, I'm flicking enlightenment to that being. Because is the cookie from its own side? No, it could be the thing that the bird tastes that makes it wake up. I'm just thinking. No one's getting harmed yet. Yeah. I'm thinking that. What imprint goes into my mind when I watch myself flicking an edible, enlightened piece of something to a creature that needs food? What imprint? Is it better than thinking I've just flicked some bread? In my mind, that's going to have an effect. Yeah? And that effect is going to be better than just throwing a piece of bread on the floor. So the emptiness of the giver is that I am not just a Hector giving food. I am someone that understands a way out of suffering to enlightenment, and I'm giving that to this creature. That's the emptiness of me as giving. The emptiness of the act of giving, same. Yeah, I have the capacity to perceive this exchange as I'm giving some food. What if the exchange was more than food? It's got the potential. It's got the potential. So why not just infect it with that? Yeah, I'm creating a different course in my mind. And what about the recipient? Yeah, is it just a little stupid bird looking for food? What if it was an emanation from a creature creating the possibility for me to have this? That can get trippy. Yeah. As deep and as wide and as loving and as awesome as you can create that, then throwing food on the ground for a bird can become an ultimate act, more powerful than filling every universe with jewels. Because the impact on your mind will force you to perceive that as a reality. You just caused what will be projected onto otherwise empty objects. And that's all you have to start with, feeding birds. And every exchange thereafter can become an experiment field for you to think of the emptiness of me, the emptiness of the experience, and the emptiness of the perceiver. There's nothing else left in a universe. Object, subject, and interaction. There's nothing else, right? So then you're just infecting all of your reality with the deepest understanding, the substrate, the nature of things. And because they don't have a nature, they could be anything. And if they're going to be anything, I'm making them everything. And they will have a result. Sometimes the commentaries will replace the act of giving usually, or sometimes dependent on the perfection they're talking about, with the actual gift itself, the object that you give. So you can play with those if you're interested. And that's all I got to say about the Diamond Sutra, the beginning of this incredible piece of document, the oldest printed book in the world. It's part of the collection of works called the Perfection of Wisdom. Yeah. And I hope that it's done something to your mind to let you see that when you put your head on your pillow tonight, it ain't a head on a pillow. And that's why it's a head on a pillow. Yeah. And when you think about any aspect of yourself, whether good or bad, that it is that because it's not that. and that you can shift it. And if you can shift it 1 inch, you can shift it 3 inches. And if you can shift it at all, you can shift it ultimately. And so for Buddhists, it would be the idea that it doesn't matter how long it takes, you will at some point wake up. You will at some point get enlightened. Because an ultimate nature, the ultimate way of being, trumps a mistaken way of being every time. It might take you 16 billion lifetimes of being a human, or being a person, or being a bird, being fed in Central Park, or whatever, and going through the cycles of the things that break, which is where we're stuck. But that doesn't have to be that way. It's not its nature. Its nature is way beyond that, and you have that nature. It's not that it's somewhere else. Everyone leaving this room today has what's called Buddha nature, the ultimate part of you, the emptiness of you, that at the moment is forcing you to see yourself as whatever you see your limits. I'm just human, real limits. Yeah, I'm not good enough, or I'm this, or I'm that. That's all a bullshit story. It's real. That's what makes it real, that it's a bullshit story. But you can change the story, and that fact is that you can be anything you want, ultimately. And I hope you do. So now that we've thought about it, as soon as you can think of having gotten any essence out of these teachings, you want to give them away quickly, hopefully with the 3 spheres in mind, so they can really impact your mind. So we'll do a mandala offering and then a dedication. Sangha Shindu Mite Guardi Rokun Nanda Shimla Shiparisho Idam Guru Ratnamandala Kamniriyatayami Sunam Yashe Sozo Shin Sunam Yashe Lejun Wei Rampa Kuni Trapashansho. Thank you for the incredible opportunity to share the deepest thing I know. I don't know anything more important than this. And even what I do know is limited, but I hope I transferred just a fraction of being able to see in these teachings. I hope they serve you. I hope they serve you in a way that is completely meaningful to each of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So next week's class on Thursday is less about the theory and more about the experience of this, and then how to get there, and what would cause such an experience where you know this in your body, and then what would happen to you if you did. That's the next class. It's really not 2 weeks. So, welcome to 3 Jewels. Announcements?
Allison's teaching a rose restorative. Where is she? Oh, there's a restorative this Saturday.
A rose restorative? Rose is being restored?
Rose essential oil.
Oh, okay.
Restorative yoga.
Aaron Rose.
Just call me.
I'm like, Rose, you're being
Aaron Rose
restored.
will not be experimental people.
And then we're doing a guy named Gal Sasson is coming next week to do a astrology talk on the whole year of 2018.
He's got a pretty big following. He's a good person to have. And he's done an astrological chart of the year. Worth coming in. He's quite insightful. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for popping in. You're welcome to any of the free and by donation classes at the Free Jewels, run completely by volunteers. If you've donated to help keep this place open, please keep donating to keep the place open so other people can have these teachings. And if you've got a little bit of cash, then come to a yoga class or a workshop. Yeah, thanks. Have an awesome night and find that pillow. Amazing. Did you just grow your hair? Yeah, okay. I love you. Finished. Thank you. Welcome home, Free Jewels. It was really awesome.
Hey, oh my God.
I didn't feel retreated because I was
Oh my God. How is that possible? Where were you? Mexico. That's awesome. When did you get back?
Mil gracias.
Life effort into it. Yeah.
Really nice. You know, funny thing is, my couch is the same fabric as these cushions.
Really?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
It's just beautiful, but against the tree. Right? Yeah. If you figure out how to do it, let me know, because every time I come in the lower more
I don't know.
you'll let me know.
That's